og velkomin til okkar. Ánægilegt að sjá ykkur svona mörg. Við hjá skattinum, áður ríkisskattstjóra og Hagstofunni og fjármála- og efnahagsráðuneytinu og atvinnu- og nýsköpunarráðuneytinu höfum verið að vinna saman að þessu verkefni sem samnorrænt í það bara 18 mánuði eða svo og erum ótrúlega spennt fyrir því og þessari framtíðarsýn sem að það hefur að geyma og vonum að þið verði jafn spennt fyrir því ef það ekki nú þegar þá allavega í lok dags. Ég heiti sem sé Jónas Magnússon og vinn hjá skattinum og fékk það hlutverk að vera fyndinn og skemmtilegur og keyra áfram dagskrána. Áður en við byrjum þá kannski fara yfir nokkuð praktísk atriði. Það er kaffi og vatn hérna aftast og öllum velkomið að fá sér. Það verður ekkert beint kaffihlé, þannig að það er allt í lagi að tínast bara svona og fá sér einn og einn bolla. Við skulum taka hljóðið að gemsunum og ef þið hafið spurningar þá ætlum við að vera með umræður í lokin. Þannig að það væri best ef það væri hægt að geyma spurningarnar þangað til. Þá held ég að okkur sé ekkert að vanbúnaðinn að bara byrja. Bjarni Benediktsson ætlaði að vera með okkur hér í dag en vegna ástandsins fyrir vestan var hann kallaður þangað, þannig í hans stað er kominn Guðmundur Árnason, ráðuneytisstjóri í fjármála- og efnahagsráðuneytinu og bjóðum hann velkominn. Gjörðu svo vel.
Kæra þakkir. Dear guests, I convey the greetings from the Minister, Bjarni Benediktsson, who is currently in a helicopter somewhere between here and Flateyri with other ministers. They are visiting the conurbations, the villages in the Western Fjord, which were hit by avalanches now just recently. So he's not able to be here with us today. So I'm stepping in his place, and let me start by saying that it is by expressing my pleasure and gratitude for being given the opportunity to participate. It's gratifying to see that there are so many people present and who are assumingly committed to the overall objectives of this venture, which is to simplify the operating environment for business and industry. I would also like to welcome our partners in the project, although I understand that some of them have left and are currently on their way to Scandinavia, who came here from the Nordic countries, and thank them for their contribution to the Icelandic project and for participating in this event with the Icelandic stakeholders. At this meeting we will learn about and discuss the Nordic Smart Government, which is a Nordic project aimed at creating a simpler framework for the operations of small and medium-sized businesses in the Nordic countries. The project, as you all will know, aims at enabling companies to do business better, regardless of their geographical location, through automatic, smart, and secure data and information flows between themselves and with other parties as required. Now, mapping the current exchange of data between SMEs has revealed that they need to repeatedly enter the same data into various systems, send the same data to a number of different places, and often use primitive means such as emails. And yes, email has become a primitive means of communication in today's technological environment, although I assume that those of us who are old enough to remember when email became available, we would probably not have believed that we would ever refer to this technology as being archaic or primitive. Now the project aims to significantly simplify business practices in almost all areas of day-to-day operations. It will promote efficiency in operations while improving oversight of the current operating situation. For example, customs document of one party could serve as an input for export documentation of the next. Companies will be able to take advantage of automatic VAT handling processes and thus gain real-time insight into the status of VAT in their accounts as needed. The project will also facilitate companies in their mandatory reporting to the government and minimize the work of collecting the information needed by the authorities at any given time. For example, Statistics Iceland, Hagstofan, could, through a new arrangement, request authorization from companies concerned to access relevant data in a standard automated way. Such an arrangement would reduce companies' work, improve the quality of data collected, and facilitate its processing. The aim of the Nordic Smart Government project is therefore to design and set up automated, smart, harmonized, and simple solutions for businesses. This is an objective which dovetails completely with the Icelandic government's own objectives as they were set out in 2017 in the coalition platform or the coalition agreement or the government's policy statement. And it will help to make businesses more efficient and increase user satisfaction, which are also objectives which we share from the government side. In other words, it aims to utilize modern technology to benefit the common good. The Icelandic government, for its part, has worked diligently towards this goal, amongst other things, by setting up the Digital Iceland Project Office in the Ministry of Finance to work on exploiting IT in collaboration with public authorities for the benefit of the general public and businesses. I would also like to point out, in particular, that we are fortunate in this country to have institutions and enterprises with the experience, the ambition, and the expertise to be in the innovative forefront in using information technology. These are companies and agencies that can build on and implement the policies that the government is promoting in various areas of modern technology, such as the use of artificial intelligence. As there has definitely been no shortage of exciting technology projects in public agencies in recent quarters. Of the many undertakings of this type, I would like to mention one in particular. This is the project that the Directorate of Internal Revenue, Ríkisskattstjóri, has been working on in the past year with two Icelandic consulting companies in the field of artificial intelligence and analytics. Initially, this project involved demonstrating the potential applications of artificial intelligence, especially machine learning, in processing data, tax data, and taxation supervision work. The project builds models for individual tax investigation projects, which are then trained to identify abnormal amounts in the data on operations. This makes it easier for the tax authorities to spot, identify abnormal conduct, and can prioritize what is flagged for further investigation. This project has given good results, and the Directorate of Internal Revenue plans to continue to introduce this technology permanently in other areas of tax supervision and compliance, and it is already clear that its utilization will result in both more successful and fairer supervision. As is clear from what I have been describing, the Icelandic government supports the Nordic Smart Government project wholeheartedly. The project's working and steering groups are comprised of members from the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, from the Ministry of Industries and Innovation, from Statistics Iceland, and from the Directorate of Internal Revenue, which also leads the project on behalf of Iceland. The project is part of a Nordic cooperation arrangement, which in recent quarters has emphasized especially cooperation in the field of IT and digitalization. Systemic Nordic cooperation in this area began with Digital North, a ministerial declaration on Nordic and Baltic cooperation on the digitization of services and personal mobility within these territories. A special ministerial committee, MR Digital, this is part of the Nordic cooperation arrangement, was appointed to support the declaration's policy aims, and under its auspices, various projects have been launched for the benefit of the public and businesses in the region. Iceland held the presidency of the Nordic Council of Ministers last year, and consequently also of the MR was in the lead for the MR Digital. The main tasks of the committee under our leadership was to narrow the focus of this partnership and select specific issues and tasks to implement. The Nordic Smart Government project operates under the framework established by a committee for this cooperative work, and the project has been funded through contributions from the participating countries, the Nordic Council of Ministers, and Nordic Innovation. The project is built on past experience of the importance of cooperation between Nordic countries. As before, the idea is to leverage the strengths of each country, in this case to help construct and maintain a cross-border digital ecosystem to support Nordic businesses competing in global markets. The project is primarily designed to serve the business community, and the participation of yourselves, the Icelandic stakeholders of the project, is crucial. Which is why it is gratifying to see and witness your interest. We look forward with optimism to further cooperation with individual companies and interest groups. In view of all this, it should be clear that the Icelandic government supports this project wholeheartedly and unreservedly, and will work to make the improvements necessary for its success, such as by reviewing the Accounting Act and introducing standardized Nordic accounting keys, as well as other tasks concerning the cooperation and standardization of digital commerce, which could concern the introduction of digital invoicing, receipts, orders, and so on. This potentially entails major benefits and advancements for individual companies, for businesses, and for Nordic cooperation, and promises to promote a stronger and smarter Nordic countries. We have just recently been through a process where we emerged, the ministry was in the lead for merging the Customs Authority, Embætti Tollstjóra, and the Inland Revenue Service, and as from the beginning of this year, we have a new agency up and running, Skatturinn. It has been a very enjoyable process preparing and making the ensuring that the necessary premises for carrying this project of merging the two institutions together. It has been very educative for those of us who are not experts in the fields of tax or customs. But if there is any one theme or thread that runs through in the entire dialogue that we have had now for a year and a half whilst we were preparing this change, it was the overall emphasis and realization that in order for these agencies to operate efficiently and to add value, they will need to apply, to master digital solutions. And I recall that Snorri Olsen referred to this project, the Smart Nordic project as government, as something that held extremely great promise. And I know that the project has been presented to the Federation of Icelandic Businesses, and I know that they have received it with enthusiasm. To conclude, it is my hope that you will have an enjoyable meeting and that you will leave from here much wiser about the project, its objectives and current situation, and I hope we will all join forces in ensuring that it will be a success. Thank you.
Takk fyrir þetta. Þá næst upp á svið Kersti Lunde. Hún kemur frá dönsku fyrirtækjaskránni og verkefnastjóri verkefnisins Nordic Smart Government. So make a round of applause for Kersti.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure being here with you today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to have your feedback on what we are working on. I represent the Danish Business Authority. I have been heading the collaboration on smart government for 4 years now. So we are working a bit slowly, so obviously we actually need your feedback. Now we're ready to hear what you have to say, how we can improve what we have been doing. So that's why I'm really looking forward to have these hours here with you today. I'm going to give you a fly into it. I know some of you have heard about it before, but to some it might be newer. And then I have a rest of my team here who will give you more details. Okay? The vision we have is, as you said, to make it simpler for the SMEs in the Nordic region. And we want to use the opportunities which are in digitalization and automation and data, and real-time data, so we can innovate and make it simpler. Yeah. And it's great to hear the support from the Icelandic government on our vision. It's great to collaborate with the Icelandic team on this. The Nordic region, we have around 2 million SMEs in the Nordic region. Not that many of them in Iceland, but I think we actually share some of the challenges, even though we also are different. We have lots of trade within our region. Around 20% is in the Nordic region. And we are the 11th biggest economy in the world. We do have some challenges in common. Competition, productivity, and we believe we can do something for the competitiveness in our region by Nordic Smart Government. And that is the main driver, actually. Coming from the Danish Business Authority, our minister has one big aim, and that is to assist our businesses, in particular the SMEs, and that's the same for the business registries all over the Nordic countries. So that's why we're doing this. The problem, as you said, emails. The problem lies in the core processes of the SMEs. It is about sales and purchase. And these processes are too manual today. There are too many phone calls and papers and Excel sheets, emails, PDFs, all these things. And this is very time consuming. So when you want to make a transaction, business interaction, sales and purchase, it would be much easier if you could do that in a simpler way. So we see that today you spend a lot of time ordering, invoicing, receipts, and all these data which are basically collected in these processes go into the bookkeeping. That's also a manual process to quite a few businesses today. And then you start also doing manually reporting. basically it is the same data which is reported to statistical agencies, to business registries in annual reports, and to tax agency as VAT and so forth, is the business's economic data. So our vision is to make a more automatic flow through all these processes by using e-documents, e-invoices, e-orders, and get all structured data into the bookkeeping so you can more easily automate reports to the government, more easily share your data with the business partners like creditors and other service providers. So we want to do this by enabling what we call an ecosystem for the business's economic data. We want to move the situation today where you punch data in different systems, closed systems, silos. We want to break down the silos and make the systems more interoperable so that they can more easily share data between systems. It means that you have to structure the data, standardize the data, so they can be applied by different systems. And if you do so, business data can be shared by easily punching a few things and then it works. You see what I mean? Yeah. So it is a business environment where things are connected and where services are provided more easily and usable to the SMEs. So the overall benefits we've been looking at for the SMEs are quite, it's mainly the paperwork we want to eliminate. We want to streamline the administrative processes, sales and purchases, reporting, so forth. You want to save the time for doing core business so you can innovate instead, sell more. We believe you can have better services, business intelligence services, for example, where you can get better real-time overview of the financial situation of the businesses. More easy access to credit. We made a business case which indicate that if it is less administrative burdensome for the creditors to evaluate and assess the business, they're more willing to give smaller credits. Small credits is a challenge to many businesses in the Nordic region today because the creditors don't want to give just a small amount of money as a credit because it's not enough money for them to gain on that. So if that's more easily done, there will be more money in the market in a sense. If we also can simplify the trade between the Nordic region so that VAT is more easily accounted across the region and across the borders, that could be a great advantage to them who are trading across borders, of course. There are also others who will have benefits from a more digital environment and a more automatic sharing of data. It is the authorities. Statistical authorities, they could have more timely information, better statistics would be provided. We would also see that we will have better basis for political decisions if we have better statistics or more timely, real-time statistics almost. We could have better government services as well if we have better data. Banks and creditors can govern their risks better if they have better data. And of course, the business system vendors, the ones who provide accounting systems and so forth, they could also innovate more on better data. So it is, in a sense, a win-win, and probably more gains as well. So currently we are working on what we call a roadmap, a strategy for realizing a digital ecosystem. And this roadmap will be presented to the Nordic Ministers of Business in September. It will have a lot of different initiatives in it. There could be some regulatory initiatives to enable more automatic flow of data. There could be some initiatives to increase the uptake of structured data among the businesses themselves. How can we motivate businesses to use the digital systems which are available? We will also need to do something to ensure that the systems are interoperable, that they actually apply the same standards or formats which can be shared between different systems. Well, yes. And yes, I'm very quick now. Yeah. But yeah, you will hear more about this roadmap today. But this is something we're working on right now. We're drafting it. But realize that if we're going to give benefit to all the actors whom I just mentioned, we have to do it together with the stakeholders, you, because you have to show us what is actually most needed for you. And we have to discuss how we can do that. And that's why I'm really, really happy to see there's so many people here today. That's wonderful, because we need your engagement in kind of co-creating this roadmap for realizing a smart government ecosystem. Thank you.
Sjá, ég minna á það er kaffi aftast. Næstur á svið er David Norheim. Hann kemur til okkar frá norsku skráningarstofunni og fyrirtækjaskránni og er sérfræðingur og ætlar að tala við okkur svona sem sé meira tæknilegu hliðina og meðal annars svona þær kröfur sem þarf að gera til hugbúnaðarhúsanna og þeirra forrita, bókhaldsforrita og fleira. En bjóðum Data David, velkomin.
Thank you, Jonas. Yes, thanks everyone for having me. I will talk about what we believe to be the capabilities needed, the abilities an ecosystem, as Kjersti mentioned, will need to have, and try to break that down to what we propose to do in a roadmap and in specific actions. I come from the Brønnøysund Registry Center, the registry center in Norway, and has been working with Kjersti on this for as long as longest time it feels like now. But we're getting very close to now being able to start to developing, or start to ask you to develop, depending on what action we're getting at. I'm getting back to that. So first of all, Kjersti mentioned this, so I won't spend time on this, but we are basically trying to improve these processes. And in doing so, we've identified 6 what we call capability areas. They are improving the business documents, making them more digital and more and getting rid of paper and PDFs. We need to make the data you have in your bookkeeping systems, your accounting systems, more available for you as a business, but also available for when it's relevant for reporting. Reporting and analytics has kind of two flavors to it. It's your individual reporting, and then it's the analytics where you also compare yourself to others, or you can, as associations or statistics agency, read something from the real-time data and don't have to wait for next year's when things already changed. Of course, this needs to be governed. You need to have a governance of this on a national level. We need to ensure that trade between our countries is, and even seeing data, maybe even getting credit across countries, that is, we have to lower those barriers. So we need to govern this also at the Nordic level. And we need to make sure that we are aligned with the European Union, with Europe. A lot of what we're proposing is underpinning what's already happening. So even though I'll get back to that, we have about 100 actions now. A lot of them are things that is already happening. It's just we need to, we've identified this as things that needs to be in place. Underpinning some of these core capability areas, we have the semantics. We need to understand the data the same across borders and across systems, especially. And we need to make sure that we are within sound grounds when it comes to the legal and the aspects of data protection. And then I'm talking about everything from privacy, GDPR, to trade secrets and even stock exchange sensitive internal sales and so forth, internal information. So these capability areas we've broken down furthermore. I don't expect everyone to know Archimate, but the ones who do see that these are capabilities, and they basically said that we need this. And I'm not saying at this stage whether it's supported by a system or by humans that needs to, or by increasing or changing law to make this happen. But we need this adoption of business document, transaction availability, and so forth to be in place. We have spent about 6-7 months now of last year to really dig into the challenges, and I have now in each of the capability areas I'm now going to go through a few of these challenges that we identify, and there's a need for validation of this in each country. Because some of these are based from one-on-one interviews with the ERP vendors, with banks and other stakeholders, but also on reference groups with all the organizations, but to some degree more in one country or not. We haven't touched all the countries, so to speak. So it's very important to hear from you if you disagree, especially, or if you really agree that this is a problem. So I'm going to go through a few of them. I'm not going to go down to the details of each of them, but maybe pick out just a few of them that we find interesting. So first of all, e-invoicing is there for public procurement. I'm now talking about Peppol. I'm aware that Peppol is not that much deployed in Iceland. But we are saying that we want to support the Peppol approach. And there are sectorial formats and other things, so we need to figure out how to bridge this gap. I know now in Denmark there's are suggestions of taking the EDIFACT invoices and make them as documents over the Peppol network. That's one way of going forward, for instance. there is generally a little bit low political support for making B2B invoicing mandatory. That's a little bit of a political context to it, maybe easier in some country than in another. Also because our political context may be to the left and right a little bit, and depends. So we also need other ways of increasing this adoption. And there's also stakeholders in this that has to change the business model, because they earn money from paper and PDFs. So we have to be aware of this situation. E-receipt standardization, that's much slower. It doesn't have the adoption that comes from the regulation of EU on public procurement. We also see that because we don't generally have validation and integrity services to see if a company is trading with someone that is already a sound business. There's a lot of services that we can add to make that happen from the government side. We believe that there's a possible missing opportunity in not using product information much more, which I believe Voko is going to touch somewhat on later on. There's a lot of information possible in the lines of the invoices that can reduce the documentation, the reporting later on, but also increase a lot of value in your data for other services. And there's also possibilities to transform some of these processes with using orders much more, which I believe also Voko is going to mention. Okay, now assume that we have everything in digital formats, machine readable formats, not PDFs. Now we need to make this available. There's a lot of challenges. There are open banking directive for the banks, but the ERP vendors or the business system vendors, accounting system, they don't have a similar regulation for sharing their data. How do we make that happen? And we see in some countries that banks even now start to do accounting, because that's a way to get to the data and to the customer instead of integrating with another accounting system, because the standards doesn't exist for integrating. So there's a technical interoperability, a semantic interoperability, and a legal interoperability problem. Again, this increased value is very important. We're now also starting to get some facts. These are early facts. We have a survey out, which some of you have already actually answered. And 9 out of about, I guess, I will assume about 30 system vendors will answer this survey in the end. 9 out of them have answered already. And in that we see that they consider API, standardized API, as the way forward. So that's what we've done. We've created a reference implementation for how these APIs should be in the project. And we believe that will significantly reduce integration costs, but of course we need a legal or some instrument to make it also mandatory to share. Of course, with the right security of users' consent and so forth. Global standards for transactions are missing. Portability generally is a problem. There are only Norway and Sweden that has a format for sharing or for portability between accounting systems. And cloud infrastructure is also an issue in some countries, which I believe we're going to get back to later as well. I talked about the semantics. This is where data David come in. I've worked on semantics for a long time on data. I also talked about these formats and the standards. The lack of semantics basically creates an extra threshold for understanding if your data is the same as mine. And this can also go further down to standard charts of accounts and into business registry information. You have to remember here that what we're trying to do is also to to make all the services that you will find from an Icelandic bank or an Icelandic trade partner to work across. So if you want to trade with a Finnish partner, you should be able to look up that company, look up its bank account number, see if that actually is a valid bank account number and so forth. So we want these services we're talking about to work across the Nordics. So common interpretation or understanding is important. Data protection, I already mentioned this earlier, harmonization and user consent in B2B. Ownership of data, everyone agrees, or the vendors agree that ownership of data lies with the business, but in fact they also often act as stewards, which means that they say they lack integration or something. That means you as an SME you don't get access to the services that you could have because of this lack of standards. And we need to make sure that if we're moving down to that you can see transactions every day or every month or every quarter, we need to make sure that they're historically available as well. Next to the last one is reporting. This is actually where we don't have we're sort of lacking a little bit of insight, I would almost say, or haven't spent too much time on it, because when we started the project, it was all about automatic reporting, and then we realized that we need to go further down or further upstream to understand the born digital documents. Implementation of XBRL is happening in a lot of countries. Automatic reporting will require standard chart of accounts again, and analytical purposes we need this privacy underpinning that I talked about. And also product information will give rise to a lot of the green reporting or reporting to other agencies and tax and business registries and statistics, and even improve statistics. There's also a couple of technical things, like we're talking now about the distributed architecture, where you look up the information about the business not in the registry but or a national solution, but in your business system or your ERP system, which means that there is some addressing mechanisms that needs to be in place, and also a mechanism for making sure that you don't have skewed samples if you're trying to analyze this data. So there's a couple of things that needs to be in place, because we're also talking about then researchers being able to use this data across the Nordic countries and so forth. And we need to govern this. We need to make sure that there's a good governance of what's happening in Iceland and what's happening in the Nordics, so that we don't diverge as soon as it's finished as a project, and that we keep on track on the European scale. This is a drawing I made today, pretty much saying what services we believe to be in place, what business services. Of course, you already have able to send orders and receive orders, but now it needs to be digital between all the systems, not on email. Fraud detection, it has come up as a big area, like I mentioned a little bit. Here's where the government needs to do a lot, because these are services that will help you to trade with the right partners, so know your business partner. Born Digital is kind of a group of services where you start out with an accounting system, so you already have digital documents from day one. In Norway, we are looking into now to start to create an API for registering your document, your business, so that from an accounting system or from a bank, you can automatically do everything there instead of going into a portal on our website. So we kind of disappear. Like I said, 100 identify possible action. I state possible actions because each country will have to do a little bit of picking here. Some will have something done. We'll have different ways of achieving the same capability, the same goal. And we're bundling this into groups, which we now put into a roadmap. Like Kjersti said, this is what we believe to be done in the short term. And then we are at this point where we need to see, okay, we know where we are, and what are the interest groups we have, and how can we use them, and who with impact, who would have to take a cost. How this needs to be done for all the actions, and this was what we're going to work on throughout the last phase of the project until May. And just to give a little bit of, this is my next to last slide. In Norway, we are working very close in sectors because we're working in private-public partnerships, and it's interesting to see that the same ideas have come up in those partnerships, which means that they're thinking about financing it from the private side there already. So what I think it's very important to see this as collaboration between the public and the sector and the private sector. We've taken quite some time in Norway to talk with the business system vendors one-to-one. And though each country will have to have their own way of talking to the stakeholders, and I'm quite impressed that you have so many of them here today. So I hope we can have dialogue with you from the project to validate our findings and our roadmap. So thank you.
Thank you for this, David. We are 5 minutes ahead of schedule, so I recommend maybe those who want coffee, do it now. Those who are a little tired, maybe stand up, do some exercises, and Vuku will join us in a couple of minutes.
Okay, it's streaming, so we have to use that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I tried to use that here.
But you can go a little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Jæja, þá skulum við halda áfram. Ef þið getur fengið ykkur sæti. Og hætt að spjalla. Jæja, þá skulum við halda áfram. Næst á dagskrá kona frá Finnlandi og hún hefur beðið mig að kynna sig á ensku. So next up we have this amazing woman here from Finland. Her name is Vuku. She is an entrepreneur and has several decades of experience in many different fields. She used to own her own accounting firm and was the chairperson for the Finnish Accounting Firms Association. She has also worked in banking and in IT. For the last 10 years, she has been a consultant and farmer. So let's welcome Vuku.
Thank you.
So, as you understand, good afternoon, everybody. As you understand, we are going to the basics now. So we are not going to speak techniques and things like that. And if I may, I ask how many of you who are entrepreneurs in this room? Great. Who are accountants or accounting firm? Great. So now you can argue with me if you disagree what I am speaking. And all my speech is based on concrete work and practice. So my headline is Why Structured Data? And I don't know how clear it is to you what is structured data. Maybe it feels like something immaterial and something that you don't understand. But there is example of structured data. It is a piece of my e-invoice where I bought a lifter, multi-one, to my farm. So simple things. You can see what there is. There is prices, VAT rates, and VAT amounts, and so on, and also the name of the product. So it is not anything abstract. It's very concrete. Okay. So we have been doing studies in this NSG project about different of these 5 countries. How much e-invoices are? How much e-invoices there are in these 5 countries? And Finland definitely is forerunner. We have a lot of invoices. But how we did come to this? And the reason is, I tell you the story for you to learn something. And we have had electronic documents from 60s already. The big companies used Edifact messages, and they changed information between each other. So, but there was point to point. And they could agree what kind of things and processes they were doing. And that was fine. But then, were there any challenges? Of course there were. because they were dealing also with the small companies. And they couldn't afford, for instance, to edit messages and not to the direct connections from company to the big company. So they were causing a lot of manual work and slowing the processes in the big companies. And they really had to do something to that. So what happened? So they decided to build a collaboration where the big companies and the banks were in, and also the government. So those three parties, they formed kind of a collaboration which is still working, and it's a verkkolaskufoorumi which is still handling these things in Finland. So before 2000, they made projects and they developed XML taxonomies for e-invoices, and they made a service providers network to transmit the files. And our banks all together joined to this work so that they developed their own taxonomy for invoices and also joined to the network. So the small companies that were clients to the banks were able to use the bank's transmission to the big companies. So in Finland, e-invoicing started 2000. And our accounting firm started to use e-invoices about 2004. So we were definitely in the first ones for small companies. But all this happened so that the big companies forced the small companies to send e-invoices. And but there's something missing, and that's what that was for SMEs. So they were able to send e-invoices, but why didn't they do it between each other? And if you think a little bit about the background of these big companies and the small ones. So the big companies, they have processes. They have people for each process. There is procurement process, the sales process, and warehouse process, and so on, material processes. But when and huge ERP systems, and for every process there was an own solution. And when you compare this to SME, maybe one-man company, which has no possibilities to use ERP system because they don't have processes. They have just two hands and they have to work. So they don't have time. And even today, all SMEs, I don't know if you agree, but it is most frustrating to sit on your office and use your computer and make the financial work there. So, do you disagree? Oh, yeah, that's the fact, yeah. Okay, it is actually a question of lack of tools. SMEs don't actually have tools to utilize these structured e-invoices. And the sales process is definitely no problem because they had to send invoices and e-invoices. That was very well. But in small companies, it is the same situation as it was with the big ones. The procurement process is crucial. And if you think that you are not able to sell, the selling is a problem, then you have to rethink what are you really doing. But you sell what you sell, but the result and the profit is made by cost and purchase side. Agree? Yes. Okay. But then what is the procurement, if we can speak about procurement process? It is small companies, they are just buying and paying invoices. So what is the process there? If they, in Finland, the small companies are receiving e-invoices today, yes, but what they do with the e-invoices? The first place where the invoices, paper, scanned, and PDFs and e-invoices, they are going to acceptance systems, the first gate to the actual system. And in that point, the entrepreneur has to accept the invoice. And when it's accepted, normally it is accountant who adds the bookkeeping account numbers, and it goes to the payables. And payables is only for paying the invoices and following your payables, for sure, but then it is also a gate to the bookkeeping. And bookkeeping is for VAT reporting and profit and loss. And I think it is in Iceland the same thing, is it? Yes, yeah. So if you have to follow your purchases and your stock, you have to do it manually, maybe using Excel, or maybe you have some other tools, paper and pen maybe. But that is the situation in Finland. So, what would be how in this situation structured data could help? And this is how. In the middle, there is e-document. It can be order confirmation, or invoice. And it is the similar file as in the beginning. And if we have this kind of a file in the acceptance system, so we could extract vendor information directly from this file. There's a company ID, there is addresses, there is a bank account number, there's everything about we need actually from the vendor. And then if we go deeper to the row level, we can get the product ID, product name, amount of the goods or services we have bought. There is also VAT rate and amount of the VAT, the total price of the invoice, and also the price per unit. Very valuable information, and you can extract it directly from the file. And I'll tell later how to use it. And also, there is that VAT information. And I just heard today that you are reporting VAT every second month, 2 months period, and you have to give the report and a payment in the beginning of the next month, so that there is a 1 month and some days you have to pay. I don't know how good is your cash flow situation in SMEs in Iceland, but at least in Finland, if this information, we have them monthly based, if we get this information about how much you have to pay VAT after 1 month and 12 days, that is in Finland, it might be a surprise how much money you have to collect very quickly to pay your VAT. So if we can use this information in these documents, we can follow actually every day what is our situation from e-invoices, sales invoices. We can collect the payable VAT, and from our purchase and cost invoices, we can collect the deductible VAT. So we can follow every day what is the amount. Of course, there are some adjustments the accountant can do, but anyway, the big numbers are there. So after every month, you have a possibility to adjust by a little bit more or whatever you need to make the VAT payment kind of a level. So and anyway, you are prepared here after that 3 months. You have that cash. You know how much you have to pay, and these are things that if you use only bookkeeping, you have no way to get this kind of information. Okay. And what you can actually do if you can utilize the information from e-documents. First of all is that profitability calculations. You know, every company, I think also in Iceland, they know exactly how much they have sold products and to which customers. So the sales is everyday level. But then when you have to calculate what is the profitability, the margin of your sales, so it needs manual work. And now when you can gather that information directly every day, so it is possible to make these calculations and automate these calculations. And then stock management. ERP vendors, they very gladly sell you the stock management system, but then there is a product registers, vendor registers, and you have to enter the information to the stock management system. But utilizing the raw information from purchase invoices, you can put this line into the stock management, and then you can follow also the stock. Simple solution, I agree, but then you get the information anyway. Then, at least for me, it is very usual that I have to look up some product or some invoice. And when it is on paper or PDFs, it is very difficult to find, and it takes time. So when you have this structured data to be utilized, so you can take a look up searching by the name of the product or whatever. And although this seems to be a very small thing, but then if you think time, 1 hour consists only 60 minutes. And if you use 5 minutes for one lookup, it's very, very little anyway. And okay, this cash flow thing, very seldom, at least in Finland, small companies, they follow cash flow. But this enables also that. So every day you know how much you have sold and how much you have bought, so, and what are the open sales invoices, open purchase invoices, and so on. So in this way, with the more simpler solutions, we can get with just the same thing as the big ones. So we can save time and we can earn money or save money. But the difference is that we are not going to use, I think, ERP systems, but systems that are based on the same things, but they are very handy. And as a farmer, I have noticed that I have to, I don't know if it is in Iceland, but all food chain companies, they have to book all the stuff they are buying, and to be able to report if the auditor or someone comes to see what you have bought and what you have used to your food production. So this is also a thing that if I buy something, it would be easy if I can add it directly with my cell phone so that I don't have to walk to my office and do that. And one enabler is that we should really utilize that EU semantic invoice content. So that's the way to do it in similar way, standard way in all Nordic countries. So let's make it happen. Data will be available, and we could restore it and reuse, and we could build new solutions on that. And I am sure that SMEs will do better business, and also the government will, as a side product, they get better reports also. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vuko. Next up we have Frank Mertens from the Finnish Patent and Registration Office. He is a lawyer and he is leading the legal analysis in Nordic Smart Government. So, welcome.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm working as my responsibility is to make the legal analysis for this project. As Charsti and David gave you the examples of the vision of this project, I'm not going to dig into this so deeply at the moment. But what I'm going to tell you about is what are we doing as a legal team in this project. Our aim is to provide this legal analysis, and we are working together with KPMG to make this happen. There are a lot of persons participating in this, basically at least one lawyer from each country, as well as the KPMG offices in each country. Our aim is to identify the possible legal barriers within the energy vision. So our aim is to find out the barriers and hopefully overcome these legal barriers that the energy vision is. We can create this energy vision into reality. How we did it? Just a reminder, we're at the draft version of this. We are not ready, but what we use is this questionnaire. We made up a questionnaire to, I would say, experts in different fields, and we gather around all the answers, and basically that's the main core information that we use in this analysis. We also have 2 use cases, which I'm coming a little bit later on. And of course, we have national experts, for example, from the tax authority, as well as in each business registers. The delivery time for the analysis for the regulatory study is in week 7, and then we are writing at the same time this legal amendments, which is based on the regulatory study. I will show you something key findings that we have found for now, but you need to keep in mind this is a draft version, but still these are crucial things to know when we are talking about the law and legal environment in the Nordic countries. Usually, our law doesn't typically designate the owner of the business data as such. The SMEs or the companies, they do have obligations. For example, here, as you can see, they need to produce the data. It's about bookkeeping, final statements, etc., etc. They have to also obligation to keep the information. They have to store it and make it secure, and also secure it so that if needed, the public authorities can reach to it. The SME is also obligated to deliver certain data for public authorities, such as financial statements, for example, or VAT reporting. Also, there is obligation that they have to limit how the data can be legally used by the company. This comes from different laws, such as competition laws, for example. Of course, there are GDPR, but that's what we are talking about on the next slide. This is something probably which is in everyone's lips at the moment. I know this current situation exact here in Iceland, but this is something we're talking about a lot in Finland. Just a reminder, when we are talking about business transactions and the data in it, the GDPR or the information that is under GDPR is quite small in general, because this is a business data. As you know, probably that GDPR places some limitations on sharing the data. And the SMEs are they have a significant role when we are talking about the GDPR. Actually, when we are talking about their role, they have to be the data controllers. And they have to have a legal basis on processing personal data, if the data has personal data. Also, they need to have a purpose for each data processing activity. These are requirements that come straight from the GDPR. In general, we could say that the awareness of GDPR to the SMEs is quite important. This is not something new that we are facing, because this is reality, and this is what we have today. I think the reason I'm talking about the GDPR here is that it doesn't matter, in my opinion, if the data is in paper version or in basically in paper version, which is nowadays it's seldom in paper version, but it's possible. But this is something that probably the SMEs need some education regarding GDPR. If it's made, there are technical possibilities to overcome these GDPR issues. When we are talking about healthcare industry, which is a small part of the whole business that is running here in the Nordic Europe, I would say that still the GDPR issues in the healthcare sector is quite small, or I would say that they have bigger problems than GDPR, for instance, the patient secrecy and stuff like that. A little bit about the overall findings. What we have already found is, how should we would put it like, the legislation is technological neutral. This can produce flexibility when we're talking about sharing the business data. In general, I would say that there isn't much laws touching this area that we are working on. But when we are talking about interoperability or portability, which are really key things to achieve the energy vision, we need to have some sort of rules, at least for this, whether it's written laws or something else. But to make this happen, we need something. Electronic VAT reporting is basically allowed. And sharing data between authorities, it's not a problem in Nordic countries. A little bit about the barriers. As I mentioned, it's a good thing that we don't have such tight legislation, but at the same time, we don't have rules for interoperability. in the business systems. What we are lacking as well is incentives for the SMEs to share the data. They don't buy this if we don't have something or they don't buy this if they cannot benefit on this one. Is it a legal question or not? I'm not here to answer that one. What we are also lacking is the automation on reporting. I think only in Denmark they have XBRL reporting, which is automated in some cases, but that's it. We're lacking uniform standards. No worries, we're working on it, but still it's going to be on our report. As I mentioned before, we are using few use cases. So the aim is to tear down these normal situations, which is normal life in the SMEs daily basis in their business. This is called the end-to-end service, which is basically the SMEs buying something from another SME, and we're tearing up this whole transaction to pieces, and we try to look at whether there is a barrier, for a legal barrier for achieving, or that the information is capable of running smoothly between SMEs. Also, the second user journey that we are using is called the growth and liquidity, which basically means that usually companies need loans and quickly. So is it possible that banks get the info as soon as possible, or they already have it? So it would make the loan process for the SME much quicker. We're trying to look if there is any legal obstacles in this. A little bit about the means of achieving the NST vision. We know that when we are making new laws, it takes time and it costs a lot. But still, in some cases, it's needed. When we think about making everything this binding regulation, let's call it binding regulation, as you can think. There are some of course good things in the binding regulations, which I could say that the one of the main things would be the legal certainty. The SMEs are aware, or each player in this area are aware of the rules, how to play, I would say, and it's really important. But this is also a political issue. It might be good that I'm not stepping in this at the moment, but we have already studied some good and bad issues regarding when we are talking about the binding regulation or voluntary regulation. I'm going to talk a second about the findings in the national level. Thanks. We'll go first in Finland. I will point out few bullets and that's basically it. I could say in Finland at the moment there is no major limitations which would disable the free flow of business data, such as accounting material is or may be stored outside of Finland, which is good. and there is no limitation on the business formats at the moment. On the barrier side is the lack of interoperability or data portability, which could say that because we do not have the legislation. A little bit about the Swedish findings. In Sweden, the situation when we're talking about enables are almost the same. There is no limitation concerning interoperability. You might ask if this is an enable or a barrier. We consider that that's a good thing. In general, we would say in Sweden that there is no specific limitation on the legislation. But the barriers in Sweden, the accounting data must be stored in Sweden, and it shall be stored in the same original form when what they got it. So if you have it in paper version, you have to keep it in paper version. And that's a major risk when we're talking about the NSG vision. A little bit about the Danish findings for now. The Danes are doing great. The enables are basically the same as in the whole Nordic area. There are no limitations that would disable the free flow of the data. It's possible to store outside of Denmark the accounting material. That's the main rule. And these are good things when we are talking about the NSG vision. The barriers in Denmark, well, they're fighting the same problems than the rest of the Nordic countries. The lack of interoperability is one of the key problems, I would say, in Denmark as well. A little bit about the Icelandic findings. This is probably more interesting for you guys. You have to remember, this is from the law. We are studying the law, not the general praxis. We read the law, and that's why it might be sounding a little bit, some cases, is that true? But it is true. There is no, in Iceland there is no major legislative limitations that would basically disable the free flow of the business data, which I think is really good. The accounting material can be stored outside of Iceland, and I think there are rules about the little bit rules about the how long it was in 6 months as main rule, but there are several other rules according to that. That's something I can't remember. A little bit about the barriers. Lack of automation. No worries, that's the same problem in each Nordic countries. The lack of interoperability into the business systems. This could be the greatest challenging in practice when we are talking about the free flow of data. In overall, I would say we share more or less the same problems, or problem is the wrong word, but the same barriers in each country. Also, we have the same, basically the same enables. When we're talking about Sweden, the problem would be the bookkeeping law, which is the greatest problem at the moment that we have found. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for this, Frank. Þá komum að síðasta fyrirlestrinum í dag. Á honum loknum ætlum við að opna svo fyrir spurningar og umræður. En núna bjóðum við velkomna Jenny Berlund frá finnska skattinum. Og hún sérfræðingur í þróun á sviði upplýsinga og samskiptatækni. There you go. Welcome.
Great, thank you. First of all, I have to thank the Icelandic team too, when you invited me. Oh, the presentation actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm about to tell you about thanks to Icelandic team, because I can tell you guys more about what we're doing in Finland. So not only from the Finnish tax perspective, but also from the government perspective and all other programs that we have in Finland in place. So, first of all, I'm going to tell you about the real-time economy project, or the program, and what is real-time economy actually about, how Nordic Smart Government connects with the real-time economy, what has actually tax to do with both, and then I'm going to tell you a few words about the VAT proof of concept that we have done in NSG. So, real-time economy is probably, many of you could say something about what is real-time economy, but here's one definition about it. What we think is real-time economy, it's the transaction between business parties in digital format, and they are automatically created, and the transactions are completed in real time, both from business and IT processing. So for enterprises, public sector and citizens, this means actually that the e-documents or the documents, order confirmations that are mentioned here many times, are actually moving from system to another without any delays. And that makes it possible to move towards electronic archiving, electronic bookkeeping, and automated accounting and all other business processes as well. Yeah, so the goal is to increase productivity, and of course the environmental aspect is also covered. Real-time economy in Finland is a joint development project between Aalto University School of Business and industrial partners originally, but there has been many programs without Aalto University, for example, so that we are under this real-time economy concept doing different kind of programs each year or a few years periods. And we also have this competence center in Aalto University School for real-time economic So, our governmental program also says something about the real-time economy. So it says that business entities should move towards fully automated processes by implementing business documents in structured form. And the government program also says that for example, tax administration is fully supported when there has to be some legal changes made to achieve these goals. And there's also a statement about the more detailed VAT reporting that we are investigating how we could do that. So what we are actually doing at the moment is that we are planning with many other public sector authorities, for example, the next real-time economy program phase, and I hope we are also going to have some private actors in the program, and we hope it soon starts, maybe at the spring. So the program, governmental program, also says that the goal is to make Finland real-time economy pioneer. So what it actually means, that what is it about to be a pioneer in real-time economy? Okay, we have to have the structured financial data. So business documents, it means that business documents and for example the financial statements have to be in structured form. We might have something common, a platform, infrastructure, but definitely something in common for the whole public administration that is to be finalized in the real-time economy program. And then, of course, to be a pioneer, we probably had to do something with the legislation. And again, government is fully supporting any legal changes that has to be made to Finland to be the pioneer. Okay, so why NSG? You have seen the vision. Why are we in this? We think that things that we try to achieve in NSG, for example, increase data quality when we move data in structured form, the quality gets better. These things actually bring growth, innovation, and more time to do the actual business, as Walker just mentioned. We somehow see that we have more positive and happier taxpayer also. And that's why we are in NSG. And as I think it was you, Walker, that said that governments are the second beneficiary of the benefits what are actually meant to be for the SMEs. But yeah, we want to be in this ecosystem. I guess this is just so obvious that I have highlighted few words from one part of the NSG vision. Real-time, detailed, structured data on demand, real-time data in the ecosystem. So we are talking about the same thing. So it was easy to adapt to the NSG program. And of course, when we had the full support from the government also. So we already have an implementation phase coming in Finland to realize the actions that we just saw David showing us. So we are very happy and lucky. Okay, so what has tax to do with both? This is actually our vision, Finnish tax administration's vision. We want to be the forerunners of digital economy. We want to integrate with external business platforms. We want taxation to be invisible so that individuals and businesses don't have to concern about taxation anymore. So we are talking about the no-touch taxation. Of course, the positive outcome is the diminishing tax gap. The data is getting better quality, and then we're going to get some more taxes collected automatically without anyone has to do many tasks. Yep. That was our vision coming from the strategy. Our strategic objectives: ensuring tax revenue, fair tax assessment, and the positive taxpayer experience. So our goals connect straight to both real-time economy idea and the NSG program. How do we reach our goals? We think that when we start actually from, there's first, for example, analytics and AI automation, it needs structured data. So that's the basics for our goals and how well we're going to reach our objectives. And of course, we also can achieve effectiveness in our processes because we get the structured data and we can automate processes and become more effective. And we can put our resources, for example, human resources, somewhere else in the real thing that we should do. Focus on the guidance for the customer, and they will be more happier. Of course, we have challenges like this. We have to somehow adapt to this world that we are at the moment, and it's all at the time changing. And I think with these objectives we can and goals we can more easily adapt to the phenomena that is going on and around us. Then our VAT process and business taxation processes, we have goals for those also. We are trying to do a bit more and bit better. In VAT processing, we are moving towards more real-time and detailed level of data. It needs automated reporting, less clarification for the customer, and we are going to get to the more efficient tax control. Do the right measurements and then connecting the right customer segment through those right measures. We are dealing with a business taxation future. We are thinking that what is the right way to do the taxation for the businesses. And we are trying to find out what is the minimum data set that we need to have to do the taxation. And we have, for example, looked up for the financial statement, is it enough to form a tax return based on the financial statement? And of course, then we should find out that are we going to take it in XBRL format? Are we do we want SMAs to send us that one, or is it coming from our business register, who is actually already collecting the data? And of course, the legislative changes, we have to find them if there is one. So this is how this real-time economy Nordic Smart Government and Finnish tax connects with each other. We wanted to do something concrete, and we made the VAT proof of concept. How small is it? Yeah, you can maybe read it. So what was the book about? We wanted to test that can the VAT calculation be automated without any accounting details, just the invoice data that we actually, and the invoice material that we had in the Nordic Smart Government sandbox that it was created during this program. Why did we do it? We wanted to test that can the automation reduce businesses' manual work and the administrative burden that they would have, and things that Wako mentioned, that is the real-time data important to estimate the cash flow and so on. And of course, for regulators, we wanted to show that the structural VAT forms that are, or the declarations that can be formed based on this invoice data. And the goal was to show when we are accessing the standard business data in real time, the businesses and regulators can be up to date about the cash flow and purchases and sales and VAT payables. Okay, the conclusion was that the domestic basic transactions within one country can be automated, but some minor changes has to be made. But the big thing was that the cross-border transactions require more changes on a short and on a long term. So the process cannot be automated when we're talking about maybe Icelandic selling something to another Nordic country. For example, we have to make the PEPL standard more useful for businesses and tax. We need proposals for updating the PEPL standards. And we are going to do it in cooperation with all countries, and we are making a statement to the PEPL, for example, to have them more information on that standard. Yeah. So this was about the POC and about VAT and how taxes is related to this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. This was very informative. Nú ætlum við að vera bjóða upp á umræður. Ef þið hafið spurningar, þá velkomið að bera þær upp, hvort sem það til okkar í íslenska landsteiminu eða til einhverja sérfræðingarna sem að töluðu. Og ef það einhver hræddur við að bera upp spurningu á ensku, þá má bera upp á íslensku og við getum verið milliliður. Já, ekki Halldór. Já. Býtu, við skulum fá mikrofóninn.
My name is Halldór, and thank you for the informative seminar. There are two things I would like to ask. One can be with respect for Kersti, the focus on the SMEs. You mentioned that this is a SME-driven, project, and everything I hear today is not only applied to SMEs but other companies as well. So my question is why segregating the market into SMEs and then others with respect to what the regulations and the discussion? And the second for Jenny, And the implementation, after the full implementation between all the Nordic countries, they consider the effect on companies that are interacting with other companies or cross-border to, let's say, China or other companies, other countries that are not implementing the same kind of system. So, in order to ease the cross-border transactions, we are dealing often with other countries. So, where will that leave, especially, of course, small companies, with respect of having maybe a hybrid system where you need to adapt to the other country as well as for the regulatory in your own country. Thank you.
Thank you, Fundur. We are focusing on SMEs because we believe bigger companies, they are more digital already. They already have digital systems in place, and they are actually demanding perhaps also digital invoices from some of their suppliers. The SMEs are the ones who are mostly burdened by government authorities and the reporting demands from us. And we also see that they use relatively large amounts of time on the paperwork. So we need to do something for them to survive almost in the Nordic region. We need to make them more competitive. And that's why we're focusing on them. But the big companies are important because they have an influence on how the smaller companies can do the trade. So we have to work with big companies as well in order for them also to make it easier to be a small company in their interaction with them. Yeah. Do you want to supplement something? Or? Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the other question was about the what about the trading with trading with other countries than Nordic countries, if a business does that. So of course now when we have almost decided, or the recommendation is to implement the European standards, so of course dealing with European country will be a problem, but yes, outside Europe we have seen China, for example, now using the Pebble standard for the formats. So that's quite interesting thing, that how is that going to affect globally, that China is adopting. But yeah, I'm not a VAT expert at Finnish tax, but we have been looking into also the problem that you mentioned. But it's obvious that when you have services for businesses that do trade with both EU or other countries, so then you have to have both standards or many standards. But I guess we try to affect also not only on the EU, but also of course when we talk when we're doing the stakeholder engagement or the meetings that we have, so we also end up talking with companies that do the trading cross-border through EU. Yeah. Was that good? Yeah.
Eitthvað fleiri spurningar? Engin?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you believe in this? And do you want to join us to do this? Because we cannot do this as government authorities. It has to be lots of things to be done by the business system providers, also by the SMEs, for us to take up new opportunities to use digital tools. So we also need lots of SMEs using digital tools, because if just half of them do it, it's it's not enough actually. We're not digital enough. So we actually have to do it together, and you can actually help us by clarifying what are your needs. So please, we want to put out some suggestions on the web in a short while. So we like to have comments, we like to have questions, we like to have proposals, because we have to know what is profiting you in this. Yeah. Do you believe in it? Yeah? Yeah? Thank you. Yeah?
Janúar. Langaðist að þakka fyrir thank you for the seminar, it's very good and very good overview what's happening, but I would miss to see where are we in Iceland, how are we situated compared which we can see from here in Finland that it's very, let's say, a good goal to go and to do everything automated in a very short time as we can hear. But where are we now in Iceland regarding the change of the law and the next step? Are we talking about the next 10 years, or are we talking about 20 years, or it's 5 years? We will see this.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The short reply to this question is that we in Iceland at the moment we will share with you in springtime more conclusions when it comes to the situation in Iceland. But at the moment we are working on the national roadmap, and the first thing that, or in short term, the most important thing and the project that we would like to see, and we know we are supported by the ministry to start changing the laws, so it will support this mission. We also have, let's say, promise from the ministry to start working on the project to have a standard chart of account. So this is a big question, this is a short answer, but I can also promise you that in springtime, when we finish this phase and this program, we will share with you more findings from Iceland. Are you fine? Okay. Something?
Maybe I can add a little bit to this, that we sometimes as a small nation feel like we are very far behind, or sometimes we feel we are the best, but we are just on a level playing field with the others. We have some areas we're better, some we're poorer, so the challenges are very similar in all the countries. So if that answers a little bit.
Hi, my name is Ingvaldur. I'm from Unicomp in Iceland, so we're across Nordic ERP systems. We huge supporters of this program. So our vision is to make business simpler and more automated. Actually, my question is twofold. One, because we are working with technical partners all the time, how can you make sure that the technical standards are implemented in the same way across the Nordic countries? For example, the Apple language, different implementation in each country, and I assume that we will introduce some services for the tax authorities and the corporate registries. Are these going to be exactly the same across all the Nordic countries? And my second question is perhaps more related to the Icelandic market, because one of the issues that our customers have to deal with is customs clearance, and we have a very different system for that here in Iceland. We have to send a report before the products get cleared, while I understand in the Nordic countries you have interest that. So are there any planned changes to this? Thank you.
Excellent.
Questions? First of all, to the standardization and how to make them to avoid differences in them. We've seen by experience in banking, for instance, for the ISO standard there, there's a lot of differences. So we're very aware of that problem, first of all. In PEPL, the e-invoicing now is 100% compatible, the 3.0 standard. So EU have already taken that step, or the PEPL has taken that step. We have issues when talking about the transactions, where in Norway we have SFAT as a transaction level, and we're trying to promote XBRL-GL. So we're focusing on the semantics and avoiding too much of the technical layer, format layer. And we're also doing POCs. The reference implementation is actually implemented and documenting the APIs as we speak now. So it's already out there on GitHub and documented with Swagger. We're taking this. I think we're taking the steps that we can. We're also following the ISO Square work very closely and discuss today, for instance, how we can progress with making business registry data available in a similar way, so that when you're looking up the company in Iceland, it will be understood in the same way as you look it up in Finland. So we're very aware of that problem. That doesn't mean that we will solve it immediately, but it means that we need governance on top of this, so we follow the problem also after this program, this phase of the program finish in the spring. What was the second question? I forgot again. I think in Norway we're a little bit similar situation as you. And I think the focus there is on the orders. As far as my knowledge goes, and what we have meetings with customers in Norway is that a lot is based on EDIFACT and closed systems. So when the goods hits the border, there's no paper or electronic document to look at for them. It's not, they don't have access to it. So I think this has to, we have to either move the existing formats over to a more open system, like moving EDIFACT over to PEPL, so we can get the orders, for instance, over a more open system, and promote the orders so that you can actually track things at a much earlier stage than the invoicing that we have talked a lot about. Earlier. Most likely this is, and it's going to go in phases here, in steps. So we're going to probably focus on the receipts and invoices, but we have to move to the orders. I don't know who could you add to that.
Yes, because the order is, we need the information in real time, and if we compare order or information to invoices, invoices are sent after the goods. And maybe some companies invoice 1 month later the delivery. So that's why we have to concentrate on orders, because then the information is maybe before the goods. So, and the content of order and order confirmation in standard it is the same as invoice. And maybe someday we can get rid of the invoices totally. But concentrate on orders if you don't have the system. So start with orders. So then we can start from clean table and put something in. And if you think about e-commerce and web shops, so the ordering is done as a cloud service. So in that state, if we get the order confirmation in a standard form, we can add it directly to our system, and then we have the information. And if we haven't paid it yet, so we have already the cash flow information and or other reporting things there. So order is the key.
eitthvað fleiri spurningar? Herðu, eigum við þá ekki bara að segja þetta gott. Þið sem ekki skráðu frá postlistan en viljið heyra meira af, þá getið bara sendt okkur post, svara postinum og við getum bætt ykkur á listan. Verkefni líka með LinkedIn síðu, þannig að það hægt að fylgjast með þar, svona samnáðum með LinkedIn síðu. Og bara takk fyrir komuna. Hvað sagðirðu? Og við erum með heimasíðu nordicsmartgovernment.org og annars bara þökkum við fyrir og hlökkum til að heyra frá okkur í framtíðinni.